Why I sold off stocks at the end of 2023. I'll try and explain here. The market rallied really strong in November after the CPI report came out, and it was very favorable. So what we saw was the market jumped at the end of November and skyrocketed up. We are looking at the S&P fund right now. So anytime you get more than a 10% jump in a short period of time, there's bound to be profit taking. So on average, the market gains 12% a year. So if from November to December we're up more than 10%, that's a really strong growth and tends to bring in uh, profit takers. So you look at the fund here, we're down here at 4,300. So you can just quickly ballpark 4,300 by adding 10% to that, which would be adding 430 to the 400 or 4,300. That takes you around 4,600. So at 4,600, we're already more than 10%. Or no, sorry, 430 plus 4,300 takes you about 4,700. So you see, we exceeded the 10% mark already. So for those of you that aren't very savvy with your percentages, it's really easy. You can take out your calculator and do this. If your current price is at 4,300, and you multiply that times 10%, that's going to equal 430. You add 430 to the 4,300, that takes you to 4,730. So at 4,730, that's your 10% mark. Or you could go 4,300 times 1.1. It'll add 4,300 plus 10% of it for you. So 4,730 would be a 10% gain. Myself, I just take the 4,300, move the decimal one place. That's 430. Add the 430 in my head to the 4,300, and I get 4,750, 4,730. So with that being in mind, this S&P went up 10%. The Dow Jones went from 33,000 up to 37%, which gets a little over 10%. And then you take a look at the small cap funds. When there's a sharp rally, small caps tend to do well. 2022 wasn't really that way for the small cap funds, but I believe long-term small cap funds will be a good return. You can see it was all the way down to 1,700. All I need to do is add 170 to get up to 10%. So when you're at 1,700, that's 350 points to get to 20%. That would be about or 340 points more to get to 20%. So that takes you to around 2,030 or 2,040, and we exceeded that. So we're above 20% gains. So that is massive gains from November 2nd to December 27th. So all these charts, I went from November to December for 2023. And you can see in the NASDAQ, which is what I really follow, that again had a 20% jump from November to December. Same thing here, you got your NASDAQ 100, and that's why I liquidated tech funds, semiconductor funds, and some of my other funds. The other reason why, and probably the biggest reasons why I sell off at the end of December, is when you see a sharp spike like this in the market, profit takers come in, and we have people looking to take tax losses at the last second. So let's say you had an investment and you bought a tech fund and that tech fund was down, or you bought a mid cap fund and that mid cap fund was down. You could sell that mid cap and buy a different mid cap and then write off any losses that you had. So for example, if you invested $10,000 and you've lost 50%, it's down to 5,000, you could still be in the mid cap sector fund by buying a different mid cap fund with the 5,000 that you have left, and then write off the 5,000 that you've lost. So for my example, I've got thousands of dollars of gains, and if I don't get any write-offs or losses to go against it, I'm gonna have to pay the full tax amount against it. So anything I could find to try and help me get some write-offs, I try and sell some of those off if I'm down. The key is you got to look into that. If you've held it for less than 30 days, you will not get to write off those losses, and you cannot purchase it back for 30 more days. just to be safe, I always go 31, 32 days before I do any trades. So anyways, if you're wondering why the market tanked at the end of the year, it didn't really tank, but it did go down. Usually what you'll see is profit takers coming in and people that need tax write-offs. They got to get those sells by the end of the year. So that's very typical for the last week of December. People try and get as much as they can out of the market and then get their write-offs. 2024, why did the market tank? I'm going to do another video on that. Why have we had our worst start since 1999 in the stock market? I'll do a video on that next.